Okay, so the other day I was remembering the year 2006 when we lived with frutiger aero design. I remember as a kid I was so excited to live in this future, but now I'm living in the future and it's not as good as I was promised, which is why I guess the frutiger aero motto is the future we were promised. Anyway, the longer I was looking at these pictures, the more I felt nostalgic for this time and began to just miss this design style. Which is why when I ended up on the frutiger aero subreddit, I decided actually I would be quite happy to spend the rest of the afternoon just studying this style. Which is why I took this image as my reference and broke down what exactly is frutiger about this picture. You've got these abstract watery background forms, you've got smooth rounded elements, there's no sharp corners allowed. Now you've got glossy or glass kind of materials, and maybe most importantly the mix of greeny blue colours. Oh, and also you've got this head in a bubble, and that sounds like it could be a metaphor, I don't know, but let's just move on to Blender. And I started with adding this landscape and reduced the subdivs along one axis. I then added a subdiv modifier in order to smooth it out, and added this sphere to use for the bubble, and added this cylinder for my head to go inside the bubble. Okay, originally I was using some Bezier curves with some bevel and rounded caps for this nose and mouth, and also smoothed the corners of the cylinder. But I didn't find this face particularly friendly or frutiger, which is why I tried a couple of variations and ended up settling on this one with the Reddit ping pong ball on top. Now, I added some rings because I noticed in the original reference there's a reflection of a ring. I tried changing the world lighting to match that deep blue ocean feel. Here I added a backlight and began on the material for the landscape, which would be the same as the bubble. It's a mix of a glossy and transparent BSDF controlled by this layer weight. But in order to control the colours, I duplicated the landscape, set it beneath the bubble layer, and gave it a mix of deep blues, teals, and this lovely dark green colour. And in order to mix these lovely colours together, I used a noise texture scaled down and reduced the roughness. I have to say, I love these colours and how they interact with this silky smooth bubble material. Anyway, I add an HDRI but turn it off in order to examine what the external lights are actually doing in my scene. And then I try adding emission to these rings, but once I turn on bloom, I realise, okay, I need to switch to cycles now. I've got the max bounces set to 0, which is why everything's dark, but once you turn them on and once you turn the caustics on, you see all the differences made, and those reflections are fantastic. Okay, for the face material, I'm using a refraction with a colour ramp. I copy this to use for the head, but I want to get this kind of what I would describe as a tasty jelly material. And you notice in frutiger style, there's a lot of elements that use this whitish inner glow, which is why I moved the white in between the two colour nodes, and to amplify the effect, modified the blend on the layer weight. I add a couple of point lights and add this one on the corner of the bubble, because when we come to the compositor, we can use these points to add some sparkles. And on a similar note, I tried adding some smaller bubbles, but decided against it because I actually just like the simplicity of one large bubble held between these two hovering halos. Now, I'm just cycling through the colours for the backlight just to see if it changes how the scene feels and looks, but I end up just sticking with this whitish colour with a slight hint of blue. Okay, now over in the compositor, I used a streaks glare mixed in with some fog glow glare and an ellipse mask to add this really subtle, blurry, dreamy vignette on the edges. So now we can take a look at the final thing. I have to say, the thing I love most about this are the colours on the landscape in the background. I love this silky frozen sea wave kind of thing and these deep, fresh and smooth mix of greens, blues. It's just so refreshing to work with something like this. So I have to say, I really enjoyed making this, and I want you to tell me what you think about this more laid back style of video. Please get a conversation going below, because I want to hear, what do you think? Is this good? Is this bad? And most importantly, have you joined Patreon? God bless.